Hello, welcome everyone to this week's webinar. It's been a while since the last one. It's been about a month. Welcome to this lunchtime webinar slash workshop from me. I am going to share my screen with the deck on it as we wait for a few more people to arrive. Just in case you weren't aware, there's a whole new system for you. Down right, you've got some emojis for hands clapping. If I say something actually good, thumbs up. Again, something good. Quizzical looks there as well if you get very confused. That can be quite appropriate at times. If I start speaking too quickly, please do let me know in the chat. But also, while I'm doing all of this, feel free to just drop it into the general chat to say hello, who you are, where you're from. It's always quite nice that. Any questions? The Q&A section is great for that ahead of the chat. Please drop them in there. But let me share my screen. Getting through the formalities first. G'day, my name is Peter. I am an Australian. The G'day part gives that away very quickly. I was living in London for 16 years, having moved there in 2004, and then December last year, moved across the Netherlands to escape Brexit. I've been here for, was it 9, 10 months now? Just moved to a new house, my own first home here in the Netherlands, or ever, a week ago. This is now a nice different background. It's an empty room. Will look different in the future as well for any other recordings. For myself, been working in this sort of field since 2006 with data and numbers forever. I had previously launched my own agency, L3 Analytics, 2010. It became Leap 3, 2016. It was sold 2018 to AIMA. I exited that last year, and I'm back freelancing now under the banner of ZHS Orchards here in the Netherlands. In my free time, I'm also the founder of MeasureCamp back in 2012, the Digital Analytics Unconference, which has spread around the world. And we're hoping to be back for in-person events from next year, assuming them safely. That's happening about hopefully 20, 30 cities around the world, all across Europe, the US, Australia, New Zealand, and also we can break into a few different other continents as well. These webinars, these workshops, I like sharing my ideas, my opinions. The ideas don't always translate so well to a formal course, I don't think, so these are a different way of doing things. They were weekly, now probably maybe once a month. Hopefully about 45 minutes, could be a bit longer. Hopefully when we just me talking the whole way through. If it's lunchtime for you, please feel free to eat your lunch or your breakfast or your dinner. If it's evening time there, you're in Australia, feel free to have a beer. I'm fine with that. I do invite questions the whole way through, with the caveat this time I have just moved in, haven't unpacked properly, don't have a proper desk yet, so I don't have two screens open. I'll be flicking back and forth to try and see any questions that are raised. But please to put questions in Q&A or even raise your hand and I'll get to you as soon as I can. The whole point here, I like sharing my ideas, my knowledge with others. It's the best way to get feedback on the ideas, to be challenged to learn to improve myself. And of course, I'm a freelancer. This is as well lead generation. So feel free to get in touch if this sounds interesting for you or any of my other ideas sound interesting for you. This session is being recorded. I publish all my recordings on my website, blog, usually over the weekend or the Monday afterwards. There's a whole set there as well. Let's be aware of that. And let's get going. 28 people, that's quite nice. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate this. So, the whole concept behind digital data maturity. And where I want to start with are the different perceptions of digital data and the use of data, because there's enough way of illustrating it. The meme showing the differences between what other people think you do, what you think you do, and what you're actually, most of the time actually doing. And the reason I find it appropriate is you hear so many stories now about the new technology, the new advances in the use of data, about artificial intelligence, machine learning, data-driven attribution, data-driven personalization, data-driven segmentation, data-driven everything, about how it's going to revolutionize businesses and their use of data and be so much more impactful. And you hear a lot about this, and then you see yourselves in Excel still, spreadsheets, churning through numbers again and again and again. And there's a big difference there. And so why is it that when we talk about these big shiny toys, the companies just aren't able to take advantage of this new technology to get the impacts that it's promising to them? And with this, it's one of the classics you hear in analytics about how a company says, we're not getting enough value from our data, it's not good enough. The problem, obviously, technology, and they spend a lot of money on the newest, shiniest, most expensive tool I can find. And it's very exciting. The management's excited, the people are excited in their business. It's going to change the entire business, this new tool, this new technology. And it takes some months to get implemented, and it's not quite right at the point in time. The data's not coming through correctly, it can't get used properly, and all the enthusiasm that was there just sort of peters out. And 1-2 years later, people go, oh, we're not using data properly. It's it's all the tool's fault. And they buy the next most expensive, even shinier toy to replace the previous toy, and things just don't change. And that's because they're not using data in a smart way. They're not mature enough to use the data. They're focusing on just the technology only, and it thinks that's the pure solution. And there are exceptions to this. Companies which are quite mature in the use of data. The classic example back in the UK was always the Financial Times. They had Tom Betts on the in the C-suite, I think the chief data officer. They had a team of, say, 50 people, multiple skills, from the data engineers, data scientists, visualization experts, the analysts, a whole realm of people focusing on the use of data. They built their own technology to actually use the data, and it was being used for the entire business. And you had the CEO saying that this use of data was what was powering their success. So there are great things out there as well, but they seem few and far between, these success stories. And it's, well, why is that? I mean, back to basics first of all. The whole purpose of digital analytics is my classic basic default slide. The whole point of analytics, it's to provide the intelligence, the insights, the information that informs business actions and business decisions, that makes them smarter through that use of the intelligence from the data. By making smarter decisions, taking smarter actions, you get better results. You get it right more often. And by getting it right more often, you're more likely to achieve business success. It improves your business bottom line, improves performance, how you measure it from organizations, all through the use of data. So how do we get there? It's not just buying the most expensive kit that we can. What's it to achieve this impact? I mean, obviously you need those expensive, powerful tools. That's the most important thing, of course. And they have to implement it correctly. But beyond the tool, implement it correctly, you need people who can use the tool. You need the people working in data, most of us here, who actually can know how to use the tools, how to interpret the data, how to turn the data into the insights, the information, the intelligence, because that's what powers the decisions and the actions. And the people as well who can actually use the information, because analysts don't make the decisions, don't make the actions. That's the product managers, the marketeers, the developers, the management suite, everyone in the business. So they have to be able to use the tools and use the information as well. And with that many people involved, that many data flows, that much technology, that many different tools, you need processes and documentation in place to govern the use of data, who does what, how things get set up, how things get used, how data is defined. And I mean, that's a lot of work. I mean, so people in business actually have to care about all this. They're willing to not just go on their gut instinct. They're willing to actually use data. That's really, really important. to change the way they think, the way they work. And all this, well, that's people and tools, technology and culture, and that's going to cost a lot of money. And money means executive buy-in. So you need that as well to have success, to achieve this eventual impact of data informing your business success. And all these different bricks, they all need to be combined together to build this sort of strong wall, which is what we call this digital data maturity. I'm saying digital data, digital analytics maturity, data maturity. It's the same thing, just depending on the scope of which you're looking at it. But you need all these different elements to combine together to actually form maturity. And the key thing there is, like I was saying, it's you need that technology, you need the people, the processes, culture, and maturity then becomes just a catch-all word to describe all of this combined together, working well together um, to demonstrate the use of data. If only one element's working, you won't be mature, you won't get the value from the data. If one element's missing, again, you need all four elements here working together to be joined together. With anything missing, you're going to miss out. Things will fail on you. So just to round off this section, what this means for me, this was my biggest challenge, chatting to prospects, to clients, back when I was working on the agency side, more than just being a freelancer. The reason this concept of maturity makes sense to me is that once you can understand and can believe in the fact that if you can use data in smarter ways, if you can use data to inform your actions, to inform your decisions, and then by using data to do this, that these action decisions will be smarter and right more often. But being right more often, it will have a bigger business impact. It will have an impact on your business. That's the biggest initial barrier to overcome. This belief just right here that you need all of this to get value from data, and that if you get value from data, if you use data to, you need all of this to use data properly, and if you use data properly, you will have business impact. That's the starting point. Are there any questions about that or so far, or disagreements? It appears we're all with me so far, which is great. So it's great to see some familiar faces in here as well. I saw a thumbs up. Thank you very much, Daniel. Appreciate that. So with that background behind digital data, let's look at maturity models. And models are important to me because frameworks help you structure your information. I did marketing at university back in 1998, 1999, a long time ago. And back then we learned a lot of different marketing models. We've got Porter's 5 forces up here. You've got the BCG matrix there. You've got the hype cycle here. We learned a lot of different frameworks. And asking my lecturers at the time, going, what's the point of all these frameworks? Like, why do we need to know all of this? I mean, we just look at our case studies, our companies we're talking about, work out what the issues are and how to make things work better. And I get the feedback that these frameworks help in that. They provide a structure in which you present your information. Everything you learn, if you put into a structure, it's going to make more sense, not just to you, but to everyone else. It's going to help you tell a story. And with these structures, some of these marketing ones especially, they've been around so long, they define your outcomes as well, your next actions by default, based on where the information is positioned within the framework. So frameworks, anything you do, if you model a framework, it's really going to help you out. So that's marketing ones. Let's look at some data maturity frameworks. So they behind them. Big thing, first of all, is everyone in the business is speaking the same language. When they talk about maturity models and data maturity in the first place, that's critical. If you can speak the same language, you know where you all are. You're on the same page. Sorry, to various references, various basic consultancy terms there. It just gets everything moving forward. It ensures that all areas are included in the review of maturity. They don't just have to focus on just technology or just the people. You don't miss anything out. It allows for benchmarking, and that can be important. Whether you're benchmarking against competitors or against your future ambitions or different parts of the business. Because once you benchmark, you can see the gap in performance, and that's the incentive, the motivation to get better. It helps you tell a story. It helps you present a story visually as well. If people can see at a glance and a complex idea presented very simply, that's incredibly powerful. And any framework, any maturity model helps you tell that story and give that information. And the whole point is to act upon this review. And so developing an action plan based off this, maturity models help on that as well. So they're the key reasons why you're focusing on using a model to define maturity and to improve your maturity. And here's, I call it the original. There may be ones before this. But this is the one from Stefan Hamill. The first one came across back in 2009. It was released. And Stefan Hamill put a stupid amount of time into this. I think it was part of his master's thesis. And it was looking at the idea of different pillars being important as part of your data maturity. He's got 6 pillars here from the management team, business objectives, the scope of the maturity data use across the business, your team, the processes, technology available to you, and score everything from a 0 to a 5. A nice simple concept here of 1 question per pillar to develop your score. And you then see visually where you were at and compare against others. It was really powerful. I've used this numerous times with clients in the past, and I'm going to use it more in the future, I'm sure, as well. I mean, I have modified it to my own needs. I've changed the questions. I mean, even Stefan himself, he's evolved it. It's only now got 5 pillars in it. And what came with this one originally was 1 question per pillar. It's simple and fast to use. You can have more complex versions with multiple questions per pillar. Have you used it? It's a great original starting point. There's others as well. This one here is from Gary Angel, who was the founder lead of Symphonic. It was sold to Ernst & Young in the US. He's now running a analytics, but more for bricks and mortar stores with the ideas from online. It's quite interesting. But he took it a step further because Stefan's one's great, but it's across multiple areas. Gary put down to 1 area only at each stage. So where are you at? And what are you doing at each stage? Are you doing basic data collection and reporting? Are you analyzing your data across the site? Are you optimizing the site? Are you targeting individuals? What level are you at? Interesting things to note with this. There's some negative stages. -3, 2, 1. You're not using data properly. These ones are below negative maturity. There is no impact on the business. It's delivering no value at all from the use of data until you get up here. And that was great. It's simple to understand going, all right, what are we doing right now? Are we doing stage 1, 2, 3, or something else? Where do we want to get to? And we'll try to bridge that gap. That's what this is so valuable. To me, it was great. I've used it previously. I'll use it again in the future. It was still a bit simplistic, like only naming 1 action each stage. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this, as you can gather. In my time at IEMA especially, I spent a lot of time working on data maturity. I got my own maturity model, which looks like this. And in this, I mean, the core parts, data maturity leads to business impact. That has to be believed in first of all. I then 7 levels here, from data novice up to data expert. And I've tried to create a simple business persona, like a customer persona, for each stage. Whether you're at a low stage, where you're not tracking your key actions, people don't trust the data, doing basic reporting only, or you're up to data savvy stage. You got multiple people in your team, digital analysts. Data is being used across the organization, in different departments. It's being used for some common optimization activities like A/B testing. So again, trying to have a simple way of defining what level that you're at. No, you're probably across multiple levels, but still you can sort of pick where a 2, where a 3, where you're at. And there's more like this as well. I saw recently a webinar from Snowplow that a similar idea of different stages and a business persona behind each stage. It's worth reading their blog post on this and seeing their interpretation of it. I didn't entirely agree, although missing a couple of earlier stages. Their data aware stages almost begins with having, I think, there's at least one, if not multiple people in your data team, which to me rules out majority of companies. And of course, everyone's got a bias in their maturity model. My bias, I was using it, and so it's designed around the idea of consultancy, helping out client-side businesses, and it's structured around that. For Snowplow, they believe you should have your own data warehouse using a tool like Snowplow from very early on as well. But yeah, it's an interesting model, similar to mine. It's worth the reading about. I mean, these are everywhere. Here's a data maturity one from a company called SafeGraph. Again, it's like different pillars, different levels of maturity. These can be found anywhere across the internet. Just go out and search for it. So lots of models. That's great. You've got models. And again, pausing briefly. Any questions? Experience with the models? Any questions on those models? Any thoughts quickly before I move on? I'll take a brief drink. Marcus, thumbs up. Joel, thumbs up. Thank you very much. Charlotte, great. Moving on then. This one was much more of a webinar than a workshop. Lots of me talking. Practical sense now, using the models. Because what you're trying to tell us is any model you use, where you are now, where you want to get to, and how to get there. So using Gary Angel's model as example, if right now you're at the site analysis stage, you're analyzing performance, you've got beyond just reporting to actually analysis, you want to do individual targeting. That's great. But what it tells you in this sort of model here is, first of all, you can't do individual targeting yet. Things will fail. I mean, you might have some success, but you're not ready. You haven't got the people, the technology, the processes, the culture in place to get success up this level yet. You have to go through step 2, 3 to get to 4. So your next action to be taking is trying to put in place a site-wide optimization program. Get the right technology for that, the people working with it, process in place, and get that process and get that culture working. And when that's working, target segments. And only when that's in place, start targeting individuals. Similar with my model, that was the whole point here, was to show what can be done with data at each level before we can move to the next level. And of course, this was the bias here. This will be done with the support of a consultancy. But saying you're down at a level, the 0 and 1, your actions at that point. You're putting in place a measurement framework. You're planning your GA setup, putting in place your core tracking for GA or other tools, Ace Internet, Snowplow, Adobe Analytics, basic marketing tags, because this play isn't in place if you're down that level there. Creating your basic reporting, providing some training for team members and how to use the tools, how to use the data, doing an initial review of performance for the website. And that's the work you can do if you're down at this level here to get you up to the next level. And once you are at a data-informed level, things can improve. You extend your marketing framework from a very top level business-wide down to different departments. You start planning and implementing more advanced tracking. Extend your dashboards and start providing some ad hoc reporting support when requested for different departments, for marketing, product management, and so on. Provide more ad hoc training, go beyond the basics. Provide answering business questions and informs the actions that are taken. And always try and work out some manual, not data-driven, but more manual optimization processes for different parts of the business. How to optimize the article performance, your product performance, your marketing campaigns. Start getting the basics in place. Because when you have to do all this sort of work, when all this is in place, move the level up from that. More at data competent level. start thinking strategically at this point. You maybe have start using data at an unaggregated level. You've got a whole reporting suite in place, a full complete training program across the business. Start doing data modeling projects and more formal programs for optimization. So you can see the actions you can take depend on your maturity each stage, your resources, your technology, the culture changing, the process being put in place, but also the value you can get from this. At this point, let's be honest, you're not getting much value. You're getting simple insights, maybe some simple changes. Up here, you're getting a lot more value from your data, a lot more impact on the business. That CRO program you're doing, the access data across the entire business, the fact that everyone in the business can actually start using data, you're doing forecasting models based on this, will lead through to making smarter decisions, smarter actions, and a bigger impact on the business bottom line. Having said all that, you always do need balance, and balance is best seen in Stefan Hamill's maturity model. So the Orange Company, they've got a good team in place, a big desire to use data, but they've got bad tech, badly implemented, or just not powerful enough. They're using Geo only, they need Geo 360 or a different paid solution. The management team doesn't really believe in the use of data. There's still the whole hippo effect happening here. They still want to make their own decisions. An Orange Company, things won't work, however good the team is, until the other areas are improved. The same with Green. They've got a really powerful tool, spent a lot of money on it. Exec team, fully focused and buying into the use of data. But the team isn't available. They don't have the right people or the process in place to get the value from the data. Again, things will fail. Even having everything like at a more basic level, down to 2, that blue company will get a little better results. Smaller ambitions, smaller desires, but the right team, the right people, the right technology in place to get some results from data. And it'd be in a great place to then grow from a 2 up to a 3 and to go further still from that point over time. And with all that, I mean, identifying what you want to achieve is really critical as well when it comes to maturity. Quick side point, focus here, data informed, as opposed to your term data driven. And I don't like the term data driven because that suggests you blindly follow what the data says. And data isn't black or white, it's so many shades of gray in between. So, and the best of both possible worlds is using data in smart ways. Combine the knowledge, the skills, and the experience of your entire team, of the marketeers, the product managers, the developers, the management team, the whole digital team, everyone else, to know when to use data and when to ignore it, to use the data to inform, to prove their hypothesis and to get better results, to inform the actions they're taking. So to me, data informed is where you get much better results than being purely blindly data driven. But the end goal here, this sounds amazing. You've got analytics tools in place all set up and they're self-service, so anyone can use them across the business. Data is shared across the entire business. Everyone's encouraged to use it. Everyone's being given the training they require to be able to use the data. That sounds great, but what if you don't need that? I mean, I was giving a workshop a fair few years ago now to some European institutions. And as we had discussed and agreed with them, they don't need to be data experts. They don't need to be up this high, and it's not worth the money for them. I mean, for them, if they want to get better than we were, but to have 1, 2 data people in business hit their requirements, to using data in smarter ways, that's great. But to run formal personal communications, they don't have customers as such. They're website visitors who need information. That's great. They can achieve that level 4 at being data savvy. Hitting a data practitioner, data expert level, it would cost too much, with a negative ROI. It's not worth it. Aim for what's realistic and what's necessary for your business. Within that, you need to define and agree your current maturity level, where you're at now. So survey the questionnaire, get the feedback from people in the feedback across the business. You'll probably find some disagreements, some different perceptions, but get to an agreed level. Define that end goal. What's realistic for your business? And from that, you've got a performance gap. So you can then create a roadmap of actions to take in both the short and the long term. And long term is an important concept here because as a rough rule of thumb for this, every stage to advance, whichever model you're looking at, a 2 to a 3, a 3 to a 4 will take probably around a year per stage as a rough rule of thumb. I mean, big investment, big focus, maybe 6 months. Less investment, not taking it seriously, it will take 2 or more years. But understand you can't short circuit this. It takes time to put the right tools in place, to hire the right people, to train people up, to change beyond anything else the culture of a business to use data. It takes time. So look at the roadmaps to get to the next level and what needs to be thought about for future levels as well. And from that roadmap, it gives you an idea of your resources that you need of people, internal, external people, part of the data team, or training outside of that, what budgets are required for the technology and for these people, what support's been required from management to pay for all this money. And with all that, again, you're setting timelines as part of your roadmap against the work with realistic expectations understood across the entire business. That's what you try to do when you actually talk about data maturity and the use of maturity models. And that's down to one slide left. I'm going to tell a story, but I just want to check it. Got a couple of questions come through here. All right, let me answer a few questions first, and I'll go to the story afterwards. So, first question, Fabrizio. Where in this model would one place advanced customized tagging? I can only see basic tagging in the lower left. For me, be placed before a stable site analysis or site optimization stage. I agree, disagree on that point. Let's look back at a model with that. So going back, it's something like this. And good points. I mean, I've got here your core tracking in place. That is reporting and basic analysis. Here's the comprehensive. So advanced customized tagging is probably more at level 3 here. But for a site analysis, I'd want to do the site analysis on core tracking. I'd want to get some basic site analysis in place before I get the advanced tracking stage, because if people can't use basic information, and for me, for like e-commerce, it's using the e-commerce funnel at a first stage. Basic tracking is enough for this. Looking to see how performance differs across different browsers, different devices, different marketing channels. I don't need advanced tracking for this. Basic, I don't say basic, I say core tracking, that's the first level. Do the first analysis. And that first analysis then inform what custom tracking you need to identify your biggest issues. Then you putting in your advanced tracking one stage at a time, and that stage is defined based on where the data needs are and advancing from there. That also allows site optimization to happen potentially as well before advanced tracking. So you're almost running both at the same parallel. So for me, it's core tracking first, initial analysis, identify your data needs, where the biggest issues are, and then informs your advanced tracking, which then happens in parallel for more advanced tracking and more advanced analysis. Hope it answers the question. Upvoting, great question here from Stephen. Who needs to be involved in analytics maturity review at a minimum for it to be useful and effective? And how easy have you found it to get senior business stakeholders involved? Good question. It depends a little bit on how seriously it's taken. to do it properly, it should come from the C-suite sort of level downwards. Did a big project with the retailer a fair few years ago, and this was initiated by their new chief strategy officer, probably prompted by the head of e-commerce at the time. But we had in the room not the CEO, but we had at least one, if not two members of the C-suite, and we had heads of every department involved, plus everyone in the data department. They wanted to be there. So everyone, the department, depending on the size, the heads of our departments, because they're the data users, and representatives from the senior management team. They're all required to do it properly. Now, you can as well, in a more junior way, do it yourself. It's like quick and dirty, but think as you're the one data analyst in the business. Go through this model yourself, identifying where you are and knowing where the business wants to get to can help you create your own business case for more investment, to hire more people, to pay for the paid digital analytics tools. Why you need to get some time to put processes in place and to change culture. So it can be great even at a lower level or being done by a more junior person on their own to develop the business case to take to their head of department to argue for the more investment and to hopefully at some point then push up the ranks so actually gets taken seriously across the entire business done properly that way. With that as well, you'll be looking to then, I know that's there. How easy is it? It can be very hard to do though, that get the senior business buy-in. The top level of management, this is where that point I made earlier about connecting data maturity and business impact. Once that connection is established, senior stakeholders buy into everything else that goes on from that point. If that connection is not seen or believed in, everything's going to fail. So hence why my starting point is in that initial belief and agreement that data maturity with everything it involves will lead to the company making more money. That's step one. Once you have that, you can get senior business stakeholders involved. If they disagree with that basic fundamental belief, you won't get them involved. Next question, Charlotte, thank you for my favorite, attribution modeling. Let's call it instead campaign optimization. I would say with it as well. I mean, again, it depends. But what I mean by that is there's different levels of looking at your campaign performance and trying to optimize it. I would want to do it at a top level, at channel level, at a last click against your conversions only, with all the flaws inherent in that, at a 2 to 3 level. You're doing that at least. If you need to be at 3, you're definitely doing that. If you want to try to really optimize your campaigns, to go from channels down to campaigns, and to start looking at different ways of viewing your data, that's more at your data savvy level. So looking to see, can we actually look at different campaigns, looking at going against their potentially even bounce rate against for retailers, viewing products, interacting with the products, creating baskets. Notice the final point. And then a more really formal, really looking at absolutely everything, you're modeling things properly, whether you're using attribution models, data-driven attribution models, or being smarter than that and defining the purpose for each campaign and evaluating that campaign against that purpose with correct data, you're up at a data practitioner level. So the level at which to start simple and do more advanced campaign optimization, that goes up in the different levels of data maturity as well. That's why I see this working. So the next question here, do you see situations where data maturity models would change depending on the stage of business is in? Do they apply differently for the scope of that business, growth, profitability? I'm not quite following the question. Sorry. If you want to raise your hand, if it's not raised already, I can bring you on stage and ask the question that way. Brilliant. Come on stage, please clarify your point. What's on that? Sorry, Fabrizio, sorry, I just saw your question there, your point there on the previous model. Bogner, please, ask your question again.
Yeah, here I was asking more about, it's also linked about the maturity of the business. So the idea was that when you're trying to apply these data maturity models, do you see situations where you would skip certain stages in that maturity model where you would emphasize more on the scope of that business? If they are going for, let's say, more of a growth stage, you would leverage more the information on not having that much historical data um, to include in analysis, and you
Yeah.
would go, yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing you're thinking there probably more about Gary Angel's model and trying to do more
Mhm.
advanced individual targeting
Yeah.
during growth stage. And to be honest, no, I wouldn't really actually change my sort of approach here at that point in time, because a startup want to really advance things. If they don't have the right bricks in the wall, a really solid foundation, they may have some success. I still personally believe it will fail though, if they don't get the foundation
Mhm.
right. I think though, when you're smaller and you're moving faster, you can accelerate faster through the stages.
Mhm.
As in, you can hire the right people from the very start of the business, and you can embed this whole maturity from almost day one. So you can make sure that you've got the right tool from as soon as possible, the right people that you need in place, that you're creating processes from day one, and that's part of your
Mhm.
entire business culture.
Mhm.
And that's how you can actually accelerate to doing more advanced work very quickly as a startup. So I agree
Mhm.
with that idea. But to say that, oh, we want to do individual targeting and we're a startup, we can move fast without the right people, without the right tools, without a culture around that, you might get some success, but I'd still question how it works properly over time.
Mhm.
And you sort of see it a little bit of some sort of startups who they say they're data driven, but they're not really, in my opinion. They
Mhm.
talk it all up. They do some advanced things, but they miss a lot of the basic fundamentals at the same time.
Mhm.
And that's what I think, if they went back to some basics, get the basics right as well, they could get better results.
Mhm.
Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
That was more was I was trying to pinpoint that it's harder on established organizations to change if it's not part of the culture.
Yep.
Whereas, yeah, putting the culture together from the start would leverage better results. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
No, definitely. I think the good point there is the counterpoint. For established businesses, it's much harder to move between stages. They've got the culture. Beyond anything else, they're fighting cultural resistance,
Mhm.
and that's a big challenge. Thanks for your question. Thanks for
Thank you.
participation. And actually, that leads me very nicely into my story I was going to tell. So let me just go into that story. Stories are good. And this is what I wanted to finish with. And we're going to have more questions. Was a story I heard a lot of years ago now at a exchange conference, which is now at Digital Hub, which is a great conference to attend when it comes back in person, hopefully next year. It's 3 days of roundtable discussions. It's great, very smart people all there. But I was at this, I don't know, 6, 8 years ago, and I was called over. Peter, come on, hear the story. Come on, repeat the story again. And the analyst then, and she was probably one of the younger people in the conference. Went, what? Okay, I'll tell the story again then. And she said she's I think talking about a junior analyst, and she was very smart then. I think she's quite senior now at various wherever company she's at. She was working in Germany in a gaming company, I think like Facebook gaming company, and she joined the company as an analyst and was initially given 3 months of training in the business, how it all worked, in the tools they used, data they collected, how it all worked, how it fitted together, how they did analysis, how they created models, how they used everything. And that was useful. And everyone in the entire business was given training with the analysts, product managers, developers, marketeers in the use of data and their reports. And then once they were released to actually do their jobs, they were sent every day the reports, but only reports relevant to their position, which they need to look at. And well, everyone in the business, when they start their day, the first thing they do is open their reports and look through the reports and look for any issues. And if she saw an issue, she would investigate further using the tools and the data available to her, which is comprehensive, everything she would need to actually answer the questions based on the training she was provided. And so she'd be able to identify the issue, the cause of the issue, identified in the dashboard she was sent in the morning. And she'll take this this solution and probably on the way to the product manager, having done the same work, same investigation, triggered by the same reports to developer, and prove the issue based on the data. And based on all this, developer would make the change and fix the problem and solve the problem, and the company would go back to making money from their work. And she go, well, isn't this like that training and reporting and use of data and belief in data and making decisions based on data very quickly and proactively? Isn't that how every company works? To which we all got very depressed because that was like how none of us worked at all. But it was great to like hear this use of data and its data maturity in practice. And apparently for them as well, this was a German company, and from the start, the two founders believed totally in the use of data. And that was embedded. This is why it's a great transition from the previous question. That was embedded in their culture from day one, and it's a product for that entire business. And apparently in Germany, all the gaming companies have all learned from this other company, and so that culture is across every business there in that sector, because they all know that if they're mature with the use of data and use data in smart ways to inform their decisions, their actions, they'll get much better results. So that's a nice story to finish with. With that, are there any more questions? Cool, there's at least one here. Two more. One more. Close that one. What would you recommend for multiple digital analytics resources tools? Because attribution in GA is not enough, according to our current trend. John, do you mean what tools would I recommend to replace GA attribution? Is it okay if you raise your hand and come up on stage, just clarify your question, please? No, not raising your hand. If the question is, how do you handle it? And how do you do, again, for me, marketing optimization, if you're not using GA attribution, I've got a whole blog post on that topic, funnily enough, which I'm going to share with you rather than talking it through now. But my basic principle is that I don't believe in attribution models. I think they're all flawed. Instead, we should be looking to understand the purpose of each campaign you're actually running, and to understand the purpose, define your KPI success for each purpose, to measure that purpose, and evaluate that campaign channel against the purpose. Then using testing to prove or disprove the results that you've found. And from all of this, we've got a whole different approach, which can be used to actually understand how your campaign channels actually are performing properly without relying on black box, attribution, data-driven solutions. So I agree with Gina being right for this. I don't think there's any one tool for it that I'm aware of so far. I believe using the internal resources, marketing team and data teams to really think through why doing the marketing, what success looks like, and then evaluate against that success. And hopefully that answers that question. As Marcus has said, a tip on picking models, keep your internal resources in mind. Stefan Hammel's model is great for bigger companies and parallel streams optimization. This does take time and work to actually monitor it ongoing. You do need possibly a project manager in place and regular reviews. This work, data maturity, isn't a simple task. It takes a long time, it's a lot of investment. So take it seriously and be aware of all of that. More questions. This is great. From Stephen. Thinking organizationally, as we increasingly analyze unified data sets, will the function become more centralized? Might the existence of an analytics center of excellence be evidence of maturity? In my opinion, yes. People flick between hub and spoke and different models, but to me, the hub and spoke model makes the most sense. To establish a hub and spoke model, you definitely need at least initially multiple data analysts, which means you have your high level maturity, assuming you're balanced. But yeah, if you want to be at what I would call a 4+ and probably a 5 or a 6. At a 5 or a 6, you have a analytics center of maturity, an analytics center of excellence in place, that hub core team. You would have analysts embedded then in every department as well. That sort of works. That's sort of one of the outcomes they actually be working towards on your roadmap, and know that level of investment if you want to become a data practitioner or data expert level. So yes, but again, that shows you if you're currently data informed level, you're currently at one data analyst. You need to hire your second person, third person. You'll need to hire model people to get to the point we have that center of excellence. You need to put in place the processes for how that center of excellence will actually work for the entire business. Who do they report to? Is there at some point a chief data or chief insights officer who's responsible for all of this? Those are the things why this will take time to do. Giles' question, which platform would you recommend for social media tracking or listening? To be honest, not my area. I haven't got one top of my mind. Anyone else in the chat want to drop some suggestions for Joel out there? My wife could probably answer it. She works in social media. I haven't looked at it recently. I've got no idea to my head what I'd use for this. I have done previously. Nothing come to mind. Please in the chat, anyone else, drop in your platforms for social media tracking or listening. But with that, and being close to the time, thank you very much for sticking around for so far. Thank you for your time today. If you want to get in touch, there's my details. My next session, I'm guessing probably do one again around the start of November, maybe around the 5th of November. My current thought for a topic is upgrade triggers to go from free GA to GA 360 is one potential topic. I'm going to think about myself about other sort of topics there. Not going to ask the question here. But apart from all that, thank you very much for your time, participation. Let me know any other questions. Recording will get published with a blog post, hopefully over the weekend. And thank you very much. I'll be in the rooms as well for the next 5 minutes or so if you've got any further questions. But apart from that, that's it from me. Have a great weekend.